I'm going to introduce the project, introduce what big history is about, introduce the project. I'll take a couple of minutes. And then I will ask some questions to the teachers, to Adam, Andrea, and Matt. I'll introduce in a second. And then we'll just open it up. So let me tell you a little bit about what big history is. So first thing, big history is the study of almost 14 billion years of history. It covers everything from the Big Bang to the history of the future, and it's all in one course. Would you get your minds around that? When I started as an American history teacher, I thought 400 years of American national history was a lot to tell in the course, and then I shifted over very quickly to be a world history teacher and thought 10 to 12,000 years was a lot. Here we have covered 14 billion. Now, what's interesting about this, and I'll make a case in a second, is that there's a coherent narrative to this course, which makes it far less complicated. The project is different than big history. So big history is a course now that's taught in maybe about 100 universities around the globe. Ann Arbor, we teach a course in big history called Zoom, the history of everything. It's taught at Macquarie University, it's taught at the University of Amsterdam, it's taught at Berkeley, it's taught at Harvard, it's taught really all around the globe at the university level. Big History Project, however, is a course that was designed particularly for the secondary schools, for middle school and high school students. And here's the key thing about it, it's a free course that's flexible, and it's a comprehensive course. And when I mean comprehensive, this project provides a full set of resources. All the resources you need to teach it, professional development, that's what we do for teachers. For secondary students around the world, this may be the only history course that could be taught as easily in the United States as it is in Canada, as it is in Mexico, as it is in Scotland, as it is in Thailand, as it is in Singapore, Shanghai. It's been taught. In fact, yesterday morning we had the Israelis, two Israeli teachers were about to translate our course into Hebrew because we offered in Israeli schools without a change in interpretation. So it's a history of humanity. Let me tell you a little bit about the project, how it started. That's David Christian. So David Christian wrote a book that I mentioned in my plenary talk called Maps of Time. And Maps of Time is it's 14 billion years of history. It was an award-winning book. The World History Association gave it its prize, I forget the year now. This came out of a course that David taught, somewhere around 1985 or 86. David is an Oxford-trained historian. He's a historian of Inner Eurasia, did a really fine book on vodka in Russian life. And it led him to study stuff like wheat and barley, grains outside. He became incredibly active in the world history movement. But he created this course at Macquarie University somewhere around 1986, 89. The apocryphal story is that he, in his college, are trying to figure out where do you start the world history course. He started with the cradles of civilization. He started with human beings that walk upright. Some historians argue that you can't actually have world history until you get oceanic travel, because you actually don't have one globe, you have one world. David said, let's start from the beginning. And his colleagues said, that's what we're arguing about. It's not arguing at the beginning of time, let's start with the Big Bang. So the first couple of years he taught this, they said, go ahead. David created a 20-week course, 2 lectures a week for 20 weeks, 40 lectures. He invited in scholars from cosmology, astronomy, chemistry. But by about the third year, he said, the knowledge is still too fragmented, it's still in pieces. And so as a result of that, what we're going to do is we're going to create, I hear a narrative that creates a coherent story. The tag to the story is that he publishes an article in the Journal of World History called A Case for Big History in 91 or 92. It attracts some attention, but modestly. He does a thing on the teaching company, which is 48 videos. I love to show this one to remind my friend David that once upon a time they cut the prices significantly. The reason why I showed you this is because, Yeah, I did. Oh, yeah, so actually I was going to show you that. But what the reason why the thing is coherent is because David has a theory that governs this course, and that 14 billion years of time can be built around what he calls turning points of thresholds. He uses the word threshold like a door, because what he argues is that the better than a turning point, the historians use the word turning point. But he used the word threshold because he argues that when you pass through a threshold, you're in a different space. We're in this room, the moment we cross out there will be the hallway. And David said that there are thresholds that he called of increasing complexity. It violates the second law of thermodynamics, which says the universe is winding down to entropy. David points out that there are some major places in human history, the history of the universe, where things just become more complex. And so the whole narrative hangs around these 8 turning points. The Big Bang is one, stars light up until we get the stars. We have only the 4 forces, we have a little bit of hydrogen, a lot of hydrogen, a lot of helium, a little bit of lithium, and that's it. When the stars explode, they give us all the other elements, all the heavy elements come from the stars. That increases the complexity of the universe. You can't make much with hydrogen and helium. That old Joni Mitchell song, We Are Stardust, from Woodstock, is apparently a scientific truth. Then you get the solar system and rocky planets like the Earth. That's far more complex than even stars. Then life develops. And then a critical point for David in human history is collective learning. By that, it's human language. Once human beings evolved to use a language that can collect knowledge, can collect learning, we are the only species that apparently can do that. So we are the beneficiaries of a language that allows us to collect the knowledge of other people have in the past, and then that generates a kind of acceleration of human growth. Then we learn how to farm, and so the civilizations create the next major turn in complexity. And then he describes the last threshold as modern revolution. By that, essentially, he means the development of fossil fuels and tighter webs of connection, which accelerate change over the last 500 years. So that whole story, I just told you 14 billion years of time, came together around 8 major turning points. And that's the way the thing is narrated. Turns out when Bill Gates, and that's Bill Gates there, when he jogs on his treadmill, he watches teaching company videos. And he watched David's video and fell in love with it and said, oh my gosh, this is, it's a coherent history. It puts everything together. This is the course that I wish I would have taken had I been in high school. And so he picked up the phone and called David in his office. Imagine getting a call from Bill Gates. And Gates says, I'd like to run a course for high school. Are you interested? And David said, sure. And so with that, the Big History Project was born. The Big History Project is a collaboration between David Christian Macquarie University, Bill Gates' office. It's not the foundation. It has nothing at all to do with the foundation. It's called BGC3. It's a small office in Kirkland, Washington. Mr. Gates has an office there, and Melinda has an office, and there's probably 5 or 6 principals, people that work for him to work on only his pet projects. And one of his pet projects is the Big History Project. Because David and I had collaborated for years, because my work had been on teaching and learning, they contacted me. Now, Bill Gates didn't contact me as chief of staff did, but the University of Michigan was involved in this from the very beginning. And what we've done is we've created now this online course. And there's a couple of key points that I want to just stress, and then I'm going to open it up to the teachers. One key point is every one of these resources lives online. So what we've done is we've curated and produced over the last 4 years a wealth of resources that teachers will talk about. This is when you open up the website, that's what it is. That's what it looks like. All of these resources live online. They are all available online. You can print or download anything that you want. There are videos. I'll show you some things in a couple of minutes. It's all built around big questions. So the whole course revolves around big questions. How does our understanding of the universe change? What the stars give us? There's even a unit on the future. There are these things called investigations. There are 10 of them. These all have big problems. They're like text-based investigations. They all start like that I showed in the plenary session with the problem, provide lots of evidence for students, and then they have to produce an account, an explanation of it. Why look at things from far away or close up? Why should people change their minds? A case study of clinics in Galileo. Why are new ideas paving the way to progress? It's a case study of the development of the periodic table as a new idea to organize the elements. When and why should people accept a theory? It's the study of Wegener's theory of plate tectonics. When it was developed, I thought he was nuts. And 50 years later, it's widely accepted about continental stripping. How and why people misuse Darwin's ideas? How is human language made is different? Is agriculture improving over foraging? How and why has our reaction to disease changed? This is a case study of bubonic plague in the famous Black Death, and then a 20th century outbreak of plague. There was a huge outbreak of plague and dramatically different responses to it. And how is the modern revolution and the enforcement of that and makes so well. So these investigations the teachers will talk about in a second. There's also a project called the Little Big History Project, where students do their own research. This course is filled with mini lectures by a virtual faculty. All these people are renowned scholars, the present company excluded. That guy, Walter Alvarez, he and his father were the geologists that discovered the asteroids wiped out the dinosaurs. He starts his lecture by saying, everyone loves a murder mystery. I'm working on the biggest mystery of all, to kill the dinosaur. No lecture is longer than about 7 or 8 minutes, and they've got all kinds of transcripts. There's also lots of reading. This is a literature intensive course. They encounter all of these people at one time or another and answer other big questions. They read difficult text, primary sources. There's all kinds of scaffolding. They take text from many disciplines. These are all texts that the students encounter at one point or another in the course. Some of these texts were created exclusively for us. So you're about to see that text, the lava surfers. We hired a journalist to write about plate tectonics. We stress, we don't want kids to just learn David's narrative. So we introduce 4 claim testers. These are 4 ways that human beings can improve, test their claims: logic, intuition, authority, and empirical evidence. They need 4: logic, intuition, authority, and empirical evidence. After the first year, we decided we were going to try and make certain that teachers were using claim testers. And so we created characters, comic book characters. So you've got, what else are the names? Evie is evidence, C is authority, Vera is instruction, that's logic, Andor is his name. The kids are the real heroes because what they're doing is they're using these claim testers to test different claims. And their kids are constantly writing narrative-based accounts. These are rubrics that are tied to the Common Core. They're all Common Core. And the key is in-person teachers. So with that, I'm going to introduce you to 3 of our teachers. So Adam Gorey is teaches 7th to 9th grade social studies. He is the social studies teacher at Northeast Hampton High School. He's a grad of University of Northern Iowa. This is your 2nd year teaching, so 2nd year teaching and 2nd year in the Big History Project. So he is a veteran, the only one that could have more years of teaching than people that could have be starting their 4th year. This is a pilot project we've slowly scaled up. Andrea Wilford is at Muscatine High School. Muscatine, is that what you said? Yep. A veteran teacher. All the time here she's been teaching. Looks to me like she's taught absolutely everything, and I think drives a bus at her school. She's nationally board certified in social studies and history with a PA from the University of Iowa and an MA from the University of Northern Iowa. Matt Jager is from Belleville High School. He's a fourth-year teacher and his first year teaching the history project. So I thought what I'd do is I'd start and just simply ask a couple of questions, and then we'll open it to all of you. What's it like to be teaching 14 billion years of time? People look at this as like, are you nuts? How are you navigating this? How are you managing it?
For me, the only experience I have teaching world history, which is what the big history one I'm placing in is when I was student teaching. I started teaching world history at Central Springs High School. And I finished my 8 weeks there. And I'm reflecting back on the classes that I taught. And I get to world history. And I say, okay, I taught about ancient Egyptians and Sumerians. And what was the point? What did I expect kids to take away from that and actually find useful, except for maybe, like you mentioned earlier, if they're on Jeopardy or something like that, maybe that would be useful to them at some point. But aside from that, I don't know what purpose that served, the things that I had spent with. But big history, there is a narrative that goes throughout the course, and you're really getting to big ideas that really make kids question what to believe, what's next, why are these things that we're learning about important, why is star formation work? Eventually stars die and they create chemical elements, and then those are out and the earth and soil start created. But how do you tie that into human history? Well, some of these elements wound up in places around the world that some civilizations were able to use because they had access to them, and other civilizations it's just not there. You ever seen Guns, Germs, and Steel, or read Guns, Germs, and Steel, where he says that the reason why civilizations are powerful and other civilizations fall is because of geography. And using big history, I was able to kind of tie some of those ideas in. And there's just more value, I think, to the world history part of these.
How about, let me shift the question slightly. So none of you are science teachers. So we often hear like, this is science heavy and yikes. Like the last time I had science, or last time I had chemistry, only 4 elements when I started. And so how are you navigating, because you're, particularly the 2 of you, you're first year history teachers. How are you navigating all the sciences that you're playing with the course?
You guys go ahead and start.
To start off, the 14 billion years, first look at it, it's daunting. As you can see, as you get into it, as you're working with the big history project people, it really makes sense, and you kind of relax a little bit and it fits in. When it comes to the science that Bob brings up, yeah, I was a little nervous to begin, and I was really, looking into the first few units there, especially the Big Bang there. I'm like, holy cow, very, very little about the Big Bang. Basically nothing. It has the basic principles of it, but other than that, no clue. And you study it, you get into the stuff, you look at the content, and you realize it all fits in, makes sense, and you understand that the kids are going to understand it too. You're not going to be over their heads. If I can understand it easily by looking at the materials for 2 hours, the kids are going to get it over the course of a few days. And all the material is very easy for them to understand. The videos are great. The videos go along with, they have questions built into them, and the questions pertain to the big ideas that they need to know. And so when it comes to the science part of it, it's not that bad. It's not as scary as it sounds or looks. It also helps it then, obviously, it's kind of cool because it forces me to maybe branch out and talk to my science teachers and maybe ask them for a little more information. And how do I take this maybe a step further? And they can give me some ideas, and it helps out in that way as well.
have trained this course that they provide training. And one of the things that they told us that really works for me is, you're learning this too. So I tell my students, they ask me questions, I can't answer. I say, you know what, I don't know, this is all new to me too. We're gonna learn together. And that's a real empowering statement when you say that to them. We're learning this together. And we're figuring this out together. And of course, maybe I'm gonna jump a little off topic, but when I was first looking for a world curriculum for Muscatine, I'm department chair for 10 years. I've been teaching over 24 years in Muscatine. We need a new curriculum. And we found this online. And I was like, I wanted to start right there with the rise of civilizations. And then I sent we went to training, and they're like, no, this all builds, and it does. There's this logical connection that builds upon each unit, yet there's a repetition in each unit, so the kids are building skills that they use throughout the year, that they will use actually throughout their entire high school and college career. And it's probably the most valuable curriculum I've ever come across, the most complete. It's free, and it's really interesting. I mean, the kids love it, and it's very effective. I've only been teaching it a month and a half. It's very effective.
Let's talk about the skills. So I showed some lectures, not by high school teachers, but by university professors. 7 or 8 minutes. They're content heavy. They're interesting content. The text in this course they're often at about the 9th grade reading level, but some, like Thomas Kuhn's Start the Scientific Revolution, far beyond that. So how are you navigating all of the literacy complexity?
Well, you do provide, on many of the articles, they have lexile levels. You choose from 3 or 4 different levels. I will tell you right now that I'm teaching this to 9th graders that are team taught. I have team taught classes, half 15 special ed students per class with 15 regular ed. I also teach ESL. Those kids, some don't speak English. They don't write or read in their native language. I have 4 different continents represented in my room. And this is working with them. Now, we do work on reading strategies, reading together. They provide, in Big History, strategies for vocabulary and these 3 close reads, which actually is working. And so I'm building their skills, and that is one of our mandates is reading, literacy, thinking skills. So there are a couple articles, you're right, that are too hard. What I do have team teachers. My ESL teacher will often take some of these pieces and she'll modify things that aren't modifiable. Or we did skip the Thomas Kuhn piece for our ESL kids. That wasn't going to work with that. But there's so much material there that you can pick and choose. It's kind of overwhelming. And the videos all have transcripts and closed captions. Most of them have closed captions. If they don't, you can find them on YouTube because we have to put up Spanish subtitles. And it's just marvelous for what we need it for.
One of the things that we did, so the first couple of years that we were doing this has been in the pilot phase. It's the first year that we've taken the pilot label off. The pilot meant was once upon a time there were only 5 schools in the United States and 7 teachers teaching this. And we were studying very closely what they were doing, what the kids were learning. And we learned a bunch of things. For example, for the first year of this, we had 20 units. We found out they broke the stuff up far too much. The teachers were telling us. So at no small expense, we reduced it substantially, repurposed all that kind of stuff. Then we discovered that when a kid watches a video, it's hard for them to understand that they're actually doing a close reading on that video. It's not like watching a movie. And if they're reading a text and they don't understand something, they go back. Or text have bold things, like all these kinds of cues. So we spent some time thinking about what could we do to make videos more like a good, what we call considerate text. So now, as Andrea or Matt said, somebody said that the videos all have questions embedded in them, and you can actually turn on a thing that will say, stop the video at the question, and then a question pops up, or they can watch it multiple times. Everything's downloadable, by the way.
I will say, we're one-on-one laptop in our district, but you can do this with just a single teacher computer. So, the nice thing is that you can individualize, you know, if you did have students one-on-one laptop, you could have them, work ahead on different levels of stuff because it's all right there online. But, as far as teaching the class, we usually just use my one computer, project up, go through different things, share videos. Other schools can assign people to watch the videos at home. That's not really going to work in our district. We have 52% poverty and no one with internet at home. So, but it's very workable in many situations.
Yeah, and kind of piggyback on that, the questions in the videos are great. You know, I showed on my computer up, and we do the same way, but I usually give them the questions in advance. And that's their cue. That's what they're paying attention for. I mean, I just send them, you know, so often you can show a 5-minute or 6-minute YouTube clip that you know is really good, and you go through it, and then you try to talk about it after those 6 minutes. The kids are just in there, they talk about that? And it's like, yeah, then you. So the cues are great for that. The 3 close reads framework is awesome. One of the things, you know, when I was looking in, you know, one of the things that in general for my classes I was really looking for was these reading frameworks and these questioning frameworks, and making sure the kids understand the content. And even now, like Bob's earlier presentation with the writing tools, those are the things that we're looking for, at least what I'm looking for, and Big History offers all of them. And it's just great, and it's leading you to do these things in other classes. I've used the 3 close reads in my 8th grade class as well as my junior year's history class. And it's a great way to get the reading and get the content out there instead of just having 10 questions about the content where all they're going to do is skim for those answers. That's it.
So the other thing, so what is, I guess, becoming clear is that it's far more than content that we're providing. So the built into this is, I refer to it as just-in-time professional development. So maybe let's talk about that a little bit. So, you know, I mean, this is the first time the 2 of you are teaching support. This is your second time. What kinds of support? So,
there is a monthly phone call with the Big History Project people where you're on the phone with any teacher who calls in, plus someone from the Big History Project, and they are discussing problems that come up, suggesting things that you might want to do differently. On the website, there is a community option where you are able to connect with any other educator who's teaching the Big History Project, and you're able to get ideas from them. Because I know Monty has been teaching us for the 3rd year, and I've got some ideas just kind of looking on things that he was put online with this, because before the watching part, when I had them also, students learn different ways. This course also has lots of kinesthetic for those kinds of learners, lesson ideas. I know I took your star.
I love that star video.
The kids are actually like acting out the life cycle of star. And so in addition to video and audio and reading, you also get kids up to other desks, and they're able to learn that way by acting out and actually doing things out of this.
That network they created, it's on Yammer, and it's private for Big History teachers, and it's fabulous. Then they have it divided up to the 10 units, and people share their resources, share their ideas, share their modifications, and it's just outstanding. I've gotten a lot of things off of that, a lot of good ideas. Sometimes people, like, I find links that I would probably in the past would have paid attention to, and I'm finding we're reading all these science stories or articles that will relate to the unit, and I'll share them, and other people share stuff. So it's very, very wonderful.
but there's also responsibility. You got to fill in logs, right? We should talk about that.
Yeah, we do. After each unit, you have to go through, and it takes about 20 minutes to do it. You have to go through it. It's just a log asking you how much time did you spend prepping for this unit? How much did you do in class? Were certain assignments done as homework or in class? What were the things that you saw that weren't working on that unit page? They really are interested in that. If there's something not working, you tell them and they're going to be on it right away and they're going to be fixing it. Well, you know, this I can't get this video to download. This video wouldn't open for me. They're there to fix it. And that's their number one concern there. They look for modifications as well. But if you have to do that every month or after every unit, we also have to send in, this year we sent in, our students sent in one of their investigations here, the second investigation you had to send in, and they're going to look at those, and then we're going to send them in again at the end of the year. They're going to look at, they're going to look at the progress that our kids are making on this content, on their writing abilities, things of that.
Yeah, so I can share a couple of things. So we do baseline and midterm evaluations. University of Michigan right now, we were involved in curriculum design and much of the, we're almost exclusively now only looking at the assessment stuff. So here's a student at the beginning of the course, what they said the big bang was, and this is an urban kid in Oakland. That was their explanation at the midterm. And then we're studying, we also have multiple choice questions that were normed for national tests. This is one that came out of probably the New York regions. Yeah, it was New York regions. And so this is our students before instruction. This was a New York region's average score, and this is our students on that same question after instruction. So this is our assessment of their ability to write with purpose and reason. So this was the second year that we did this. And so this is at the beginning, at the baseline. You can see that we're in the right direction. Use of that accuracy of information.
Yeah, and if you're a data-driven district like mine is, this offers excellent ability for you to provide data on how you can monitor how they increase from unit to unit. I'm also going to say, I mean, this is like the Holy Grail. You have all sorts of things you can use for data. They have quizzes built in, they have multiple choice tests, but we use the written assessment because we're working on reading, writing skills in our district and measuring their growth. And I've only completed 2 units. I'm just starting the 3rd unit. But the difference between the first writings and the second writings, remarkable. I don't know if I've got a couple of them here. I've been writing notes on them, but they go from one sentence like you showed up there to a full page of writing. And that's only after 2 units. That was enough to just make us all say, we're committed to this totally. We are already seeing growth in our students in their higher order thinking skills. And everything that they're going to be using, these skills, they will apply across the board.
So the one thing that I want to open it up. If you had to pick one thing that it was like the most daunting or thing that was, what's the biggest downside to teaching you this?
For me, and this might be similar for you too, one of the hard things is in building when you're by yourself. It's difficult to bounce ideas off of. And I think it changes the way you look at how you teach in general for all your classes. So it's difficult because when I do new things and try different things, and you really like it, but at the same time, you don't really have that outsource. The Yammer site helps a lot with that, but at the same time, when you're doing it on your own, it's a little difficult, I think. And then obviously your first year, you're opening yourself up to new content, new ways of thinking for yourself too. So if there's a learning curve for you, just like we talked about with science part, there's a learning curve. You do have to spend a little time to get used to it. I won't deny that, but once you get into it, it starts the burden or the weight on your shoulders kind of comes off, and you realize that this is going to be fun, this is going to be interesting. You're going to want to be you're going to want to go through the content just like your student because you're intrigued. So like Andrew was saying, we don't know it yet either. We want to know it too, actually.
To piggyback a little bit off of that, now that I've gone through a year, I know that both this year and last year, the number one complaint at the beginning was, why are we doing science?
Yep.
And a lot of complaining about that, and then a great deal of complaining where a small rural area about religion fitting into big history. And what I would tell you, well, one, it's the island board that you have to learn these things anyway, it's required. And two, we're not telling you to believe something different. We're not attacking religion, we're not doing anything like that. But we're asking you to put together a scientific narrative about how the history, or about how the universe is created based off of evidence and logic. To get to the end of the year, that was my start at the beginning. To get to the end of the year, my biggest complaint was that we're out of time. They were so fascinated and interested about the last generation. They wanted to predict the next question, things like that, and we just flat out ran out of time. So even though we got so many complaints at the beginning of the year, by the end of the year they were so hooked on class that they did not want to stop. That's a nice problem to have.
That's our biggest problem is they're resistant because they're like, why are we learning science? And the most difficult thing for me was I knew that this stuff was good, but I didn't see the connection. It's very hard. And now that I've been through now that I finally did unit 3, it wasn't really until unit 3, like, or looking back, once you get through a unit, you're like, okay, I get this connection now. We're doing origin stories. I teach origin stories when I taught world cultures. We look at different origin stories, and they begin that in very introduction. So I was familiar with that. And then the purpose is because we're looking at origin stories and also a scientific origin story, because we have that problem with religious concerns, sorry. But you also want to be able to defend what you or understand what other people are saying so that you can formulate your own defense and arguments for what you believe in or want to support. So this is giving them the tools to analyze things, look at evidence, create written arguments to support their ideas based on logic, intuition, evidence, and authorities. So it's anyway, I kind of lost my point there, but I am learning the value as we go along and the bigger picture. And I guess where I got most excited was unit 3 when we were looking at the silver nova. And I did not understand, I had never even thought about where did all the silver and gold come on Earth and why is there so much more silver than gold? And it all has to do with the death of a star and supernovas. Because that's where all silver was created and how did it get placed on the Earth. And then, like I said, then it takes you up through we mentioned this before, it takes you up through the conflict of wars, silver, the impact of silver on the Spanish Empire, the conquistadors. It's just fabulous.
So what we're doing at that point is we're introducing kids to a project called the Lucid History Project. They do original research. And in that project, they have to take whatever topic they are going to study, they have to tell the human history of it. But they also must take it back to a time period before they're human beings and use 2 disciplines other than history. So these are really pretty exciting. We're doing all kinds of things. Going to answer questions and answers. One quick comment about the science piece of this. So in many states, California is one, for example, Michigan's another. We have a version of this course that is now an alternative to the world history course. In that, I don't know if you've seen it yet, but by November, they're to human history. So they are moving through the beginning of the course, what people would think is science. But they're really stressing, I think this is true all the time. I don't see this as a science course at all. I see it as a history course where you're using the ideas that came from other disciplines, like historian, economist ideas, and sociologist ideas, in the service of understanding how we arrive in the present. And what they're doing in this course is we are telling the history of how we develop these ideas. So unit 2 It's how we move from Ptolemy to Copernicus to Galileo to Newton to Leavitt to Hubble, and then looking at how we move from Aristotle to Mendeleev in the periodic table. And so what you're doing is you're learning the history of these ideas. In fact, in some ways, it's a global intellectual history course until the human era. The last thing I want to put up is that this course, we want to take questions, but the course is totally free. There's David Christian has a TED Talk. I also have a TEDx talk that I did on teaching this course. There is a New York Times article 3 weeks ago. It covered the New York Times magazine about this. But if you're interested, either contact me or log on. This course is totally free. So we have what we call design partners, schools that we're actually monitoring and trying to figure out how to improve the course. But there's probably another 2,000 schools all across the globe that are teaching this course that we give them full access to it. They're more than welcome to all the resources. We just don't actually track very much. We want to know how they're using it, but we don't really spend much time. And there's all over the place. Questions? Yes.
My question would be, is this like you have to use the entire course, or would you be able to pull out certain parts at all?
You can definitely pull out certain parts, and that, like I said, was our original intent, but it really does build up their skills, their historian skills, starting with those units, and they start out with simple driving questions, and each unit is focused around a driving question, and you investigate evidence and you point it in. But we are on the model where we incorporated our world history standards so that we are going quicker through the first units. You could spend a month on each unit, seriously, but we're going to try to go through like unit 3. We're going to go through. It's killing me because I love unit 3 already. I want to teach everything in it, but I got to do it in a week. So I'm just focusing on what we want to evaluate, which is the writing. So we're going to just do the investigation. And the investigation stand alone. They give you a packet of the primary sources, secondary sources, the kids reading.
So it's incredibly flexible. You name it in schools. So some schools are offering this over a semester, some block schedule over a whole year, some teaching it, some doing it. I've got a school in New York that's doing 5-week intensive in the same. So you can cherry pick anything you want.
How many of the schools that are actively using it are private religion-based schools?
We've got a number of both schools. So in fact, from St. Louis, New Orleans, I presented to the 2 different diocesan schools. We actually, there's Bridget O'Connor, who is at the name of the school in New Orleans, has given some talks recently on the relationship between Greek history and faith. We have in the course, after I presented to the first, the diocesan schools in St. Louis, we went back and said, you know what, we don't have any content in here. So, for example, there was a biography, an institutional biography of the Vatican Observatory, which is the second oldest observatory in Europe, created by the Jesuits. Unfortunately, most of the time in the world history course, the last time you encounter the Roman Catholic Church is at the trial of Galileo. And the last time you really encounter religion in the U.S. history course might be the Scopes trial. So either one fares very well, right? So we're using that. There's 2 essays by John Hott, who is a Catholic theologian who's written some things about religion, Catholicism, or religion and faith. And we have biographies of Chardin.
I just wondering if there's no overlap in the public system.
Well, you know what? And we help with that. One of the things that came out of my meeting with the Catholic schools was the head of the St. Louis Diocesan Schools said, you're missing the 5th claim test. I said, the 5th claim test, sure, Revelation. So I said, there's nothing to stop you from adding Revelation. Obviously, we're not about to because of the public school system. But add Revelation as a claim tester, which is exactly what they're doing in New Orleans. And then they use it. So what degree does Revelation contrast to other forms of authority, contrast to evidence, contrast to intuition, logic? It opens up
And that we're doing a project in the front.
Yeah, and if you contact us, we'll put you in touch. She's one of the teachers that, in fact, I think she just did we've hired a number of teachers, the master teachers, to do many, I think we call them on the hot seat. So they're now monthly sessions, and I think she just did, September 1. Was it on faith or on pacing?
I think it was basic.
She just did, and she just gave a conference talk on the relationship between Greek history and faith. So, yeah.
And when it comes to that, you're giving them different viewpoints, similar to any other history class. You're talking about any topic, the decision to drop the atomic bomb in World War II. You're giving them all these different viewpoints and different ideas on what's right and what's wrong, and you're letting them decide. As long as you're getting that across to them, and you're not saying that the Judeo-Christian view is the correct one and the only one, or any of the other origin stories we tell them. We're just saying, hey, these are out there, and if you don't really make it a big deal, it shouldn't become a big deal.
Bill, that said, when the thing on the Unit 1 has the origin stories, Genesis is treated as an origin story amongst others. And so some teachers choose not to teach it for just that reason. And you can turn it off so that you actually have the access to turn on and off assets so students can even see some stuff. We give you total control. And there's no two ways around it. The argument for the Big Bang is made, the argument for evolution by natural selection is made. There's evidence. If you're in a situation where you're going to encounter that, you will encounter it. Like I said, I actually thought this was the thing. I was going to find myself in a front page, but we've not seen much of this at all. And I thought actually after the New York Times article came out, it was going to be huge. But it's not. Other questions? Yeah.
For most of you, did it replace world history?
Yeah, we had a freshman survey class, which was a mix of world history as well as geography. And we replaced that with big history. So all of our freshmen are required.
Other schools are using it as a ninth grade course as an introduction to a more in-depth local history. We've got a version, like we said, we just passed through the UC system in California, which vets the stuff we have. And our version of it just passed through UC. But we really did, we pushed it up. So 75% of the course really is human history. Yeah.
How did you guys bring this to your administration, or did your administration go with this idea? Like, for you guys at school personally, where did you come from with this?
I was watching TED Talks, came across it, got looking into it more, looked into it a little more, signed up for the free version. There's a free version that anybody can take on it. Started playing around with that, and I worked out. It's kind of neat. They came down, Eric came down here back in the spring, and they kind of pitched it. Monty, you were there, weren't you? And after that, we got in contact, and we thought it was a good idea, and we went with it.
There's a number of schools in Iowa, and we hold cluster meetings. I think the cluster meeting was here.
No, it was at science.
Go
Please
ahead.
rush back at all from administration. I guess I always, I've already talked to my administration a little bit about this for sort of replacement for an eighth grade civics course where you can do a lot of different things. There already have civics course at the eighth grade level. Why am I teaching in the ninth grade level? So I've sort of tried, giving some sort of curricular change, I guess. And I keep hearing the whole, science heavy, what's really science heavy, things like that. Where do you guys, what's your argument? I know you touched on that a little bit, but against administration, to get them on your side, where do you go with that?
I didn't have that problem. My administrators are really great. But I think you look at the first unit, you're doing the Big Bang. The question is, how and why do people change their mind? And you're looking at the big part of it for me was we looked at the different models of the universe, how Ptolemy viewed it, how Galileo viewed it, how, and then we go all the way up to Hubble. Well, it's not necessarily science-based, but it's different views, and a lot of social studies, a lot of social studies skills when looking at it. So you're looking at it, science-based stuff, but you're looking at it more from a social studies viewpoint.
Yeah, the other thing is we've got, if you contact the project team, what we did mention is there's a 24-hour helpline. So anyone in the globe that uses Big History, once you get access to the site, there's a course helpline. I just was telling you over breakfast, we added another person to it. You're not getting, you usually get an answer within an hour, but no longer than 24 hours. Bill Gates is, one of Bill Gates' chief of staff is on it, and if no one answers in 24 hours, he does, and that sends a ripple through the people that are looking for it. But so you can send a note and ask it, or contact me, and we'll put you in touch. We've got resources. We've got short papers that we've written on it. We've got some evidence, and on it, and we have no trouble sending a letter or reaching out to superintendents. We are, this thing has sold itself. And what we're trying to do now is we've now landed this in some big states, California. So we're now looking to then have some larger districts or counties. So if you can help explain it so that other people might be interested, we're more than happy.
The key for my administration was it's free. It's totally free. The materials are free and they're excellent. And even better, all the Iowa core that we need for social studies, plus all the new reading and literacy things, we're all big about that in Muscatine. Every standard is in there. So it's a done deal.
Yeah, and Iowa's played a major
And all of the formative assessment, that's another thing in jump on us. Everybody has to have common assessment. You want common assessment, they're all in there too. You want just your.
So Monty and Leslie's number of people that can come in early on this. And Iowa's had a strong presence. I think it feels strong presence. In fact, it's shown us the number of venues that we should be reaching out to. So we've got all kinds of support systems, like Moto and things like that we've actually now in contract. So let us know. Any other questions? Well, great. Thanks for your attention. We'll be around if you have any questions.